When you're talking to a girl and you run out of things to say, then the conversation ends and you can't create attraction or connection and you can't hang out or start a relationship. So really all relationships hinge on being able to keep talking, and I want to show you how to do that in this video. So number one, you need to reduce your filter. And there's really a spectrum when it comes to what should and what shouldn't be said. There's being socially suppressed. And this is where you run out of things to say. You might enter interview mode where you're asking the girl question after question, and you end up getting rejected. The girl walks off, or you get friend zoned. And on the other side of the spectrum is where you have absolutely no filter at all. So this is where you're irreconcilably offensive to the girl. You're out of touch with reality. The girl cannot relate with you, and oftentimes you're uncalibrated. You're gonna get rejected. But in the middle part is where you have your socially competent guys. This is where you are able to give your opinion, you're teasing, you're telling stories, and that's pretty good, but really the quadrant that you want to be in is this golden zone where you're date worthy. So not only are you able to talk and say what's on your mind, but you're actually able to be man to women polarizing. So that's the ideal place that I want you guys to be in. But where we find most guys is in the socially suppressed side. They're running out of things to say and they're getting into interview mode constantly. And so everybody wants to say the right things. That's gonna make them seem high value and awesome. So this picture of a guy, he's doing advanced calculus in his brain, and that's what a lot of guys are doing when they're in a conversation with a girl. So, but what if I told you that trying to be perfect and say the most amazing words is actually lower value, all right? Because what if somebody said this to you while being 100% serious? What would you actually be thinking in that moment? Imagine they said something like, I exponentially navigated the tranquil river the other day. All right, what would you think if somebody said that to you? You would think that they're trying to seem intelligent, right? They're using massive vocabulary for no reason at all. And so either they're trying to be intelligent or they're just autistic, but you would think they're trying hard, right? So even if you managed to always say the coolest or the most intelligent words, it would seem off in that conversation. It would seem like you're trying really hard. And who is the person that tries really hard in the conversation, in an interaction? Well, it's the person who needs something out of a situation. It's the person who believes that they're lower value than the other person, so they need to compensate by doing more, by being more perfect and more rounded off. All right? So instead of worrying about saying the right words, you need to lower the filter on the words that you think are good enough to say. Okay? Understand that if it sounds like your questions, like your stories, opinions, if it sounds like your words have value, then they will have value. Because if it sounds like they have value, then they will be perceived as having value, right? This is a world based off of perceptions, okay? So like, for example, let's say I'm talking to a girl in Target the other day and I'm like, you know what, I love Greek yogurt. It has so much protein. That can sound very different depending on how it's said. That can sound like it has value, or it can sound like it doesn't have value at all. So if I said it like, I love Greek yogurt, it has so much protein. Okay, if I say it like I think it's not going to get a reaction, or I'm unsure of myself, then the girl is gonna feel the same way about what I said. But I can literally have a conversation about Greek yogurt and make it sound extremely interesting. Like, you know what? I love Greek yogurt. It has so much protein, right? That's gonna draw somebody in, depending on how I say it alone, regardless of the content of the words, Words are only like the vehicle that shows your self-worth, that expresses the man to women energy, and really expresses the emotions that you're conveying, like when you're telling a story. All right. So the foundation of having less filter and being able to say whatever's on your mind really is your self-worth. And knowing that your words are valuable, your words are unique, they mean something. All right. So this is gonna show in your sub-communication. There's no way around this. This is why I can give you the frameworks for attraction, for positioning yourself as high value, and everything like that. But I can't just give you a script that you can recite, because your self-worth is going to shine through. So this is one of the things that I do. If you're a guy that wants to remove some of the blocks that prevents you from being fully confident, or you just want to start having better conversations with women that lead to more dates, then click the link below. I have a video that goes over more about that. All right, so number 2 to never run out of things to say is to know the possibilities of what could be said. Because oftentimes if you don't know what you could possibly say, then you just don't know. All right, so what can I say? Number 1, teases and flirting. Like, I can always come back to a flirting line. I can always come back to making a tease about a girl if I have nothing to say. And this is just something you should do in conversation in general. So let's say I do run out of something to say. I can be like, you know, you keep giving me that flirtatious look. I don't know what you're trying to do here, quit it, right? With that man to women energy. Or I can say something like, you know, you're nice, but I think I'm a bad influence on you, right? So you could have some of these things in your back pocket. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with having like a go-to phrase that you can always come back to and say in a conversation. You can make a random statement like, why am I so awesome? Or why do you like me so much? You can always say that. All right, another thing you could say is personal input. And let's say a girl's like, I'm from Kentucky. I'd be like, you know, I've never been to Kentucky, but I have been to KFC. So I'm pretty sure that's like the same thing. All right, it does not have to be mind-blowing. This is a major thing that prevents guys from being able to talk forever and really lowering their filter, is they think that what they have to say has to be mind-blowing. Why? Well, it could be something to do with self-worth. It could also have to do with listening to podcasters all day who are really good at talking and thinking that you have to match yourself up to that standard. Or it could be from like watching movies and thinking that everything you have to say has to be extremely good, like a scripted movie line, all right? It does not have to be mind-blowing. That would be extremely weird if it was super amazing, everything that you said. All right, and with personal input, what you're doing is you're providing value, and she's getting to experience you, right? She's getting to hear your voice. She's getting to see all that sub-communication that shows that you're, you know, a valuable guy. All right, and also time is just elapsing. Like, obviously, the more time that you spend with a girl, then the more connection that's gonna form over time, right? So personal input, being able to just add your own opinions and also just make observations about the girl. Like, you seem like an athletic girl, or you don't seem like you're from around here. All right, you can always come back to making observations. All right, the next thing that you can say is like stories. And the way to never run out of stories is really like the more adventures that you go on, the more stories that you're gonna have, all right? There's not a hack for having more stories that are authentic to you, right? And stories are big, right? Because that really gives a girl a picture about who you are and some other things that we're gonna talk about. All right, so here's a story that I might say to a girl. Like, let's say we're talking about the gym. I might say, you know, it's funny. When I first started going to the gym, I thought, man, I'm gonna get shredded and girls are gonna be staring at me. I'm gonna get more dates. But recently, I've just been having random dudes compliment me and asking how I got so lean, right? So right there, I'm sort of, I'm sort of giving myself social proof in the fact that other guys are asking me for advice. And it's sort of a subtle way to, demonstrate value, right? So if you have any flexes, like maybe you're well traveled, you've been to a bunch of countries, or you have a good physique, you have an amazing career, or you have like some challenges you've overcome in life, or other positive attributes about yourself. Well, you should find stories in your life, relating to that, that you can incorporate that positive characteristic into that story and then write it down so it's in your awareness. Like, why would you not use that to your advantage? Like, let's say that I'm somebody who's won like a competition for, I don't know, a lumberjack competition, right? Anything, I don't care. Why would I not want to let a girl know about that? Now, obviously, you can't come out about it in a way that seems like you're just bragging, right? And I can help you do this. I help my clients do this in a non-try-hard way. I'm really good at writing. So you can then bait these stories into a conversation by asking a question related to your story and then dive into your story. So for example, for that, that story I did up here, like, people are complimenting me and asking me how I got so lean, I can ask the girl about, does she go to the gym, right? And then I can lead on into my story. Or if I have an amazing career and I'm like, I don't know, a doctor or like an entrepreneur or something, I might ask the girl what she does for work. And then she might ask me, or maybe she doesn't ask me. And then I'm like, okay, I do this, by the way. And then it came up, it seems like natural, right? So that's how you can do that. And don't think of stories like they have to be amazing, like they have to be Harry Potter quality, or they have to be really long. They can be about things like an everyday normal life. All right, I called it like mini stories. So I went to the pool earlier and I tried to read. It was just too hot to focus though. I ended up just tanning there, right? So I can talk about what I have going on in my everyday life. And stories, they can be made up jokes and they can be hypothetical as well. So this is just another, I'm giving you more ways to communicate right now. That's all I'm doing right now. So I went to the pool and a fat kid did a cannonball and then all of the water splashed out of the pool, right? I'm being funny. I'm making up a story. And then when it comes to learning about the girl, asking questions is a part of conversation and creating a connection and just talking, right? And it should be done. So I don't want you to think that you should never ask questions. But if you're constantly entering interview mode where you're asking question after question, then it means that you're not giving enough personal input, right? You're not responding, you're not adding to it or giving your own story. So here's just like a hypothetical example. And honestly, I've had this happen one time in reality. So what made you decide to get a criminal justice degree? And the girl's like, well, to be honest, I really like watching those crime shows. I'm like, yeah, that's actually how I chose my career as well. You see, I watched a lot of Western movies growing up, and then I decided to become a bank robber. All right, so what am I doing there? I'm teasing the girl. I'm being funny. I'm adding my own personal input. What could I have done? What could I have done? Oh, you liked watching crime shows? Oh, what crime shows did you watch? Oh, nice. What other shows do you watch? And then I could go to interview mode hell, right? So providing your own input is massive. And this kind of all loops back to your self-worth and then lowering really the bar and allowing yourself to just talk. The third strategy to never run out of things to say with women is developing your social muscle. All right, lifting makes your muscles stronger. And I want you to think of your brain as having a social muscle. It becomes more creative and more able to socially flow when you stretch and exercise it. Okay, it's sort of like this. The first approach that you do during a given session, whether you're going to a bar or maybe you're going out downtown and approaching women, it's usually the worst approach. Why? Because you haven't been warmed up yet, all right? And then you have one or two conversations, you start being able to flow. It's sort of like when you warm up for a basketball game by shooting layups, by doing free throws. It's like any sport where you would warm up before the game or before practice. It's the same thing with socializing, all right? And then you start to gain momentum. And when you regularly talk to girls, it stimulates neuroplasticity. This is how you become better with girls, guys. All right? Enhance cognitive flexibility, which is creativeness. Emotional intelligence, like reading cues, being calibrated to the girl. Stress reduction, becoming more relaxed. Pattern recognition. What do people connect with? Like what works? All right? So this is one of the reasons why consistently talking to women is an unfair advantage for a guy in the dating market, because while you have a social muscle that's been warmed up, that's been shredded and built over time, they do not, because they have not learned this knowledge or applied it. All right, so over time, the moat between you and other guys who don't do this, it becomes bigger because their social muscle remains the same, or it atrophies because they're doing absolutely nothing at all. All right, the Talk Forever drill. This is a drill that also builds up that social muscle. What you do is you say a random sentence, and then you take one word from that sentence, and then you use it in the next sentence. And then you can do this for 5 minutes straight or 10 minutes straight. Maybe when you're driving in a car or you're just at home. So it'll work something like this. I'm sitting on a chair in the grass. The chair is made from wood and screws. Out in the forest, you're also gonna see some wood that people chop down and make into wooden ships. All right, and then you would continue to use that and basically go through that over and over for 5 to 10 minutes. Now, this is really good to do as a warm up before socializing. If you guys really wanna fast track your success, you wanna start being able to go on 1 to 3 dates per week, click the link below, and then I have a video with more information on that. But I'll see you guys in the next one.